Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 47 of Codename Kids Next Door, Operation L.U.N.C.H. We begin this segment with Numbuh in a small spaced area while he's uploading a fighting system or fighting program to a computer. Suddenly, the computer warns Numbuh about a code L, and this makes Numbuh quite nervous. Suddenly, someone pulls Numbuh out of this small spaced area, which is revealed to be his locker, and the individual responsible for pulling Numbuh out of his locker is none other than Lizzie Devine. Lizzie comments about how Numbuh has a habit of working through lunch when it comes to Kids Next Door related commitments, and Lizzie says that she intends to spend some time with Numbuh for this particular lunch period, and Numbuh begrudgingly follows Lizzie into the cafeteria. Eventually, Numbuh and Lizzie find a table in the cafeteria, and Lizzie scares away some of the students at this table. But before Lizzie has the chance to open up her lunchbox, a group of archers invade Gallagher Elementary School's cafeteria. After some initial confusion, the leader of the group of archers clarifies that he and his comrades have come to take the food of the students, and then they begin to sing a song that introduces themselves. The lyrics of this song reveal that the leader's name is Robin Food. The group is known as the Hungry Men, and their motivation is to steal food from the young to give to the old. And the tune of the song is a medieval sounding version of the Rainbow Monkeys song. After the song finishes, Robin Food instructs L.U.N.C.H to confiscate the food from the students. So L.U.N.C.H has a bag with him, and he's putting all of the food into this bag. When L.U.N.C.H takes Lizzie's lunchbox, Numbuh takes the chance to grab a hold of L.U.N.C.H, and he's also holding a 2x4 technology hot sauce gun. Numbuh threatens to spray L.U.N.C.H with hot sauce if the Hungry Men don't return the lunches that they've stolen, and Robin Food warns the rest of the Hungry Men that they need to be careful because L.U.N.C.H does not agree with spicy food, to say the least. But then Lizzie tells Numbuh to let L.U.N.C. go, and Numbuh is baffled by this. Lizzie insists that Numbuh is not allowed to work during lunch, and Numbuh points out all of the lunches that have been stolen, including the lunch that Lizzie prepared, but Lizzie insists that she will take care of this. Numbuh and Lizzie's argument does distract Numbuh long enough to allow the Hungry Men to free L.U.N.C. from Numbuh's grasp. So the Hungry Men are able to steal the rest of the lunches, and then they escape. Numbuh is furious that the Hungry Men managed to escape, but Lizzie tells Numbuh to not leave the table until she returns. She insists once again that she will take care of this. So Lizzie goes off to activate a 2x4 technology vehicle known as the L.U.N.C.H, a vehicle made out of lockers, and then she goes off to find the Hungry Men. The next scene takes us to the Shorewood Forest retirement home, where we see Robin Food and the Hungry Men are singing their song once again, celebrating how they successfully stole food from Gallagher Elementary School today. One of the senior citizens of this retirement home is Lydia, Numbuh 2's grandma, and Lydia is complaining about how she doesn't want onion rings, if I'm not mistaken. But before she can say anything else, Lizzie arrives in the L.U.N.C.H and prepares to fight Robin Food and the Hungry Men. Back at Gallagher Elementary School, Numbuh 2 and Numbuh 4 go to see Numbuh who's still in the cafeteria sitting at that table, and they comment about how school is over, so why is Numbuh still at the table? Numbuh just says he'll stay at the table a little longer, not revealing the exact reason why, but Numbuh 2 and Numbuh 4 don't question this any further, and they just leave school now. Back at Shorewood Forest retirement home, Lizzie uses the weapon system of the L.U.N.C.H, which is Jim Short's launchers. Yeah, Jim Short's launchers are the weapons for the Lakasaka. And eventually, Lizzie is able to defeat Robin Food and the Hungry Men, and she demands to have her lunch returned to her towards Robin Food. Yes, she demands that Robin Food return her lunch to her. But then Robin Food accuses Lizzie and other kids of being selfish, saying that they're unwilling to part with any of their lunch for the sake of old people who are hungry and starving. And Lizzie says that she never thought of things like that before, and she starts to feel regret over wanting her lunch back. Lydia, though, is growing impatient, and she tells her friends, Sheldon and Maurice, that they're going to be prepared for something. So Lydia, Sheldon, and Maurice activate their Senior Citizen Squad robot, which first appeared back in Operation Tapioca. Lizzie thinks that the Senior Citizen Squad robot is going to fight her, and she tries to say that she doesn't want to fight them. She didn't know how hungry the senior citizens were, and insists that they can have all of the kids' lunches. Now, Lydia actually acts rather polite. She tries to say that she Lydia rather politely says that it's nice of Lizzie to be concerned about the senior citizens, but she's not focusing on Lizzie. And then finally, Lydia snaps that she and her friends intend to attack Robin Food and the Hungry Men, not Lizzie. Lizzie is surprised by this, but Lydia clarifies that the senior citizens don't want the kids' lunches. They want a lunch that's more suited for them, senior citizens. Lydia then proceeds to tell Lizzie that Robin Food and the Hungry Men are really cafeteria workers for the retirement home, but they're too lazy to actually make food for the senior citizens, so they go and steal food from Gallagher Elementary School instead. Lizzie is not happy when she finds out that Robin Food she's not happy about being deceived by Robin Food. And then some of the other senior citizens begin to chime in, saying that the kid food just isn't suited for them. They'd rather have food that's more suited to their tastes. And yes, although despite being exposed for just being lazy, Robin Food and his hungry men still try to portray themselves as noble and saying how they'll steal from Gallagher Elementary School the next day. They begin to sing their song again, and Lydia Lydia gives Lizzie her lunchbox back, and Lydia politely tells Lizzie that she should leave now because things are going to get quite messy, to say the least. So Lizzie leaves, and we hear Lydia, Sheldon, and Maurice using their robot to beat up Robin Food and the Hungry Men. So it's nighttime now, and Lizzie has returned to Gallagher Elementary School. She comments along the lines about how it's better late than never, but Number One and her are finally going to have their lunch. And then she opens up her lunchbox and reveals a single piece of celery, and Number One is baffled by this. Lizzie then starts to talk about how she thinks Number One is letting himself go or becoming overweight. Number One does not like this, and that's how we end this segment. So this segment actually gives Lizzie a significant focus. Lizzie could be considered the spotlight character for this segment. So we have ourselves another entry where a non-Sector V operative we have ourselves a segment where a character who isn't a Sector V operative gets to be the spotlight character. And we also are introduced to new villains, Robin Food and the Hungry Men, who are naturally meant to be a reference to Robin Hood and the Merry Men. And Little Juan, the Hungry Men equivalent to Little John, has a voice that's meant to be a reference to Sammy Davis Jr. And Tom Warburton did comment on one of his blog posts about how this segment kind of fulfills the whole idea of the show, of Codename Kids Next Door, bringing up either taking mundane situations and turning them into an over-the-top situation, or turning the idea of kids versus adults into an over-the-top situation. And in this case, like he mentioned in his blog post, Tom Warburton brought up how this segment featured lazy senior citizen center cafeteria workers that were too lazy to, senior citizen retirement home cafeteria workers that were too lazy to make food for the senior citizens and just steal food from kids instead. That definitely brings to mind the premise of Codename Kids Next Door, or it's definitely an example of the premise of the show. And yes, initially, Robin Food and the Hungry Men tried to paint themselves as Type 3 anti-villains or well-intentioned extremists, saying that they steal from kids, but they try to do it for a noble reason to help the old people. But then, yes, we do find out that the senior citizens, the senior citizens don't appreciate this because, the kids' food just isn't suited for them, senior citizens. And Robin Food and his Hungry Men are really just lazy and trying to paint themselves as more righteous than they actually are. But yes, and the comments about, the whole idea of senior citizens and kids having different tastes in food, that makes sense. Like, there are some foods, I definitely remember some of my more elderly relatives not being able to eat certain food that myself and some younger relatives of mine are able to eat without any problem. Although at the same time, the show still recognizes that there are some foods that all ages are able to enjoy. And actually, the sibling segment, this segment's sibling segment actually brings up a type of food that multiple ages enjoy. So not just kids, not just teens, not just adults. Although in the sibling segment, the focus is more on kids and adults. And we'll be sure to talk about that in the recap and thoughts video for that particular segment. But yes, this does bring up a good point. There are some foods that seem to be better suited for younger people, some that's better suited for older people. But the sibling segment also recognizes that there still is food that can be enjoyed by different age groups, not just a single age group. Now, the other notable detail for this segment would be Lydia, number 2's grandma, appearing, and her friends Sheldon and Maurice. The senior citizen squad is the trio. But yes, Lydia actually came off rather nice in this segment. Well, nice by Lydia standards anyway. And that was pretty nice because Lydia initially was considered a villain when she first appeared in Operation Tapioca. But then, later segments did portray Lydia not really as a villain, but just more irritable and kind of antagonistic. But again, not really a villain. So this segment did stand out because that continues it. While Lydia still might act like her usual self, she still did come off notably more polite or more tactful when talking to Lizzie, clarifying that the senior citizens were not upset with Lizzie or the kids for not sharing their lunches. They were upset with Robin Food and the Hungry Men for being too lazy to make food that's suited for senior citizens. And it was pretty heartwarming how Lydia just gave Lizzie her lunchbox back and politely told her that she should leave before Lydia, Sheldon, and Maurice proceeded to beat up Robin Food and the Hungry Men. So, that's something I did like, how Lydia does show that she does have nice qualities, even if she's still her usual self. She did come off nicer in this segment, but she still felt in character, and I did think that was a nice touch. And I did like seeing Sheldon and Maurice again. It was nice to see Lydia's friends again after Operation Tapioca. Now, the other detail, I guess, about this segment is I know some fans have debated over who they felt more sympathy towards between number 1 or Lizzie. Like, some fans said they felt more sympathy for Lizzie wanting to spend some time with number 1 during lunchtime, while others kind of sympathized with number 1 not really, or some fans sympathized with number 1 wanting to focus on his commitments to the kids next door during lunchtime. And some people did say that they did sympathize with number 1 being frustrated because Lizzie didn't want him to stop Little Juan and the Hungry Men. Lizzie wanted number 1 to let Little Juan go and let the Hungry Men escape because she insisted that he wasn't supposed to work during lunchtime. So again, that kind of added to how some fans sympathized more with number 1, but some fans sympathized with Lizzie more. But then again, yes, this was before Lizzie's true identity was revealed. And Again, I don't want to give too much away for the sake of those just following along with these recap and thoughts videos, or those who might not have seen the teaser for the hopes of greenlighting the Codename Kids Next Door sequel series. But yes, with Lizzie's true identity now known, some fans definitely view the situation in a different light, and particularly Lizzie's motives. But then again, that's been the case with a lot of Lizzie's appearances. Her motives are definitely put into question when you take her true identity into account. So, like I said, this segment in particular definitely is looked at differently by some fans now that we know Lizzie's true identity. So this kind of adds to more what people think about who they sympathize with more between Number One and Lizzie. But in any case, yeah, I believe that's about it for this particular segment. So we got ourselves another Lizzie Spotlight appearance. We got to meet a new group of villains who try to portray themselves more as anti-villains at first, but they really are just too lazy to really bother to do their jobs. And then we do get to see Lydia showing some heartwarming moments, given how she's usually portrayed, and she still feels in character even while showing these heartwarming moments. And otherwise, yeah, like I said, Lizzie's actions in this segment are seen in a new light by some fans thanks to her true identity being revealed years later. And yeah, that's about it. So as of this video, we've now discussed the A segment of episode 47 of Codename Kids Next Door on this channel. Take care, and until next time.